What can I do? They always play music at 12 o'clock on my street. All right, just waiting for it to go live. Let's see. Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's live with one of our very favorite people in the plant-based community, actually in the whole world, Dr. Doug Lisle. If you're unfamiliar with him, then please just go to Amazon or Audible right now and get The Pleasure Trap, the extraordinary book he co-wrote with Dr. Alan Goldhammer. He has an amazing podcast every Wednesday night with Dr. Jen Hawk, who we interviewed a few days ago. It's called Beat Your Genes, and you can listen to it live on Blog Talk Radio, or you can listen to it pre-recorded on iTunes or on Spotify, Stitcher, so many ways. There's several hundred episodes now, and 2 of them he talks about COVID, which we're going to talk about a little bit today, but we don't want the whole hour to be about it because there's already so many wonderful interviews that he's done about that, and people like Dr. McDougall have done it too. Did I give myself a haircut? No, I broke quarantine and I allowed my hairdresser to come over, so I don't think I can get arrested for that. But I'll tell you, this is not the best time to be growing out your hair during this self sheltering at home. So as you know, we always give preferential treatment to people that write into us from our mailing list. So we're going to go to those questions first, and if Dr. Lisle has time, we'll answer your questions here as well. Thank you so much, Dr. Lisle. I love talking to you.
It's a pleasure, AJ.
Yeah, you're my fave. I always feel like at the end of Wizard of Oz, you know, where Dorothy says, because you know, the Scarecrow, the Cowardly Lion, and the Tin Man. I think of you, Goldhammer, and McDougall. But sometimes I want to say this, like she said to the Scarecrow, I love you most of all. So. Because the other 2 scare me, frankly, you know, that's why.
There you go. That's good.
That's why. Love them too. So the first question will be about COVID, and then we will go on to some other fun topics like bulimia and weighing yourself. So this person didn't know how to ask questions live, so that's great that she sent it in. I have only one question that is weighing heavy on my chest. The scary part of the COVID-19 pandemic is if you get the virus, you don't know if you will have a mild case or if you will die. That is a large range. I am following all the rules, but I need to go to the market every 2 weeks with my gloves, masks, and sunglasses. Quite a sight.
Is she asking if she should go with the gloves and mask?
I think her question is that, I guess it's, I don't really actually see a question mark in this, but she's saying that I think she's fearful because you don't know if you have it, if it'll be a very mild case or if you'll end up dying. So
right.
Yeah.
Right. I think the answer to that is in the existing evidence, and the existing evidence overwhelmingly indicates that if you are pretty healthy, then your odds are going to be low of having, you know, obviously a fatality. That the vast majority of the fatalities are taking place in people that are have health compromises, and very significantly and troublingly, it's not just that, it's age. So age is the biggest factor. So if you're a healthy 75-year-old, you may be more vulnerable than if you are a not so healthy 55-year-old. So if you are an elderly person, if you are over 70, for example, I would say, you know, we don't know enough about the virus and why it is that those numbers look that way. It could just be, and probably is, just sort of general health and general resistance capacity, and that the average 75-year-old just doesn't have the resistance capacity that a 55-year-old has. But the difference statistically at this moment, from what we can see, the difference between a 75-year-old and a 55-year-old, much less a 35-year-old. If you're 35, it would be an extraordinary situation for you to be in trouble with this virus. You might get sick, you might have a nasty flu kind of thing, but the odds of you dying are extremely small. You wouldn't worry about this any more than you would the flu, and you wouldn't be thinking you're going to die of the flu. You might feel like it, but you know you're not going to. Same thing would be true here. But that's not true if you're 75. So the older folks, we're not sure why, look considerably more vulnerable. Probably most of that vulnerability has to do with they just don't have as much cardiopulmonary function. They're just not as tough. And so when I know a lot of older people, when they die from essentially obstructed airways. You know, they catch a cold, they catch a respiratory virus, and they can't clear their throat. They essentially suffocate, and that's not an uncommon, situation to happen. So, so if you're 75, you probably can't cough the way you did when you were 55. You just don't quite have the steam. And if you get a bad case of this, it's much riskier. So the first thing I would ask you, anybody ask themselves, how old am I? And if you're over 70, then you need to be extra careful. And if you're under 60, then you still want to be careful and smart, but you're not likely to be facing anything that's that intimidating. That's what I would say. Also, general health looks to be a big issue. If you're a healthy 75-year-old, you are almost certainly going to be fine. If you're sick, if you've got diabetes and you've got, COPD, if you got some significant issues and you wheeze going up 3 stairs, then you need to be extra careful here in this next period of time.
Jan wants to know if obesity itself is a comorbid condition if you don't have diabetes, heart, or lung conditions.
No, I wouldn't think so. Usually obesity is a mild correlate with most things, and when we do what's called partial correlation, or we pull away things like, do you have heart disease, do you have diabetes, and we pull that away from obesity, we find that obesity itself isn't particularly impactful on human health. So that I would say no. If you can walk around the block and you're in pretty good cardiovascular shape and you're overweight, I wouldn't be thinking that you're at any particular extra risk.
Mm. So Heidi wants to know, is the virus able to live on frozen foods and their bags for over 2 years? Should we be disinfecting every frozen food bag before we put it in the freezer, and cooking any frozen fruit before we eat it to kill the virus?
I wouldn't know. I'm not sure that's known. Okay, the virus has a half-life that's been established. So in laboratory conditions. So I don't know what it is, 8 hours on a spoon. So 8 hours, after 8 hours, half of it's gone. After another 8 hours, another half of it's gone. After another 8 hours, another half of it's gone. So there's going to be a half-life situation, and I don't think it's likely to be the case that very cold weather is going to extend that situation particularly a lot. So I would doubt very seriously. In other words, the virus has been living in and around cold things. It can handle the cold without any big problem. But that doesn't mean the cold is very likely to preserve it in any spectacular way. So probably if you touch your vegetables and you put them and you've got the virus on your hands, or somebody does, and they throw it in a freezer, it's very likely that the half-life is just like it always is, or maybe a little bit slower. So maybe the half-life is 12 hours instead of 8, which means that in 2 or 3 or 4 days, it's down to such low levels as to be unimportant. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about your frozen vegetables.
Okay. Gina wants to know if you personally are going to the store and how you are protecting yourself.
Yeah, I go to the store, but I'm trying to not touch the cart where grimy other hands have touched the cart. And so I go in there, unlike previous life when I might wander through the store, just looking at interesting things. And it's always good to see Dr. McDougall's stuff on the shelf. And Bob's Red Mill. I go visit my friends at the store. But nowadays I'm going to go in there, I'm going to go get what I'm going to get, and then I'm going to get out. So I'm a little bit more targeted these days.
Yeah. Just so you know, I mean, all these people are putting hearts, how much they love you. Dr. Daryl Woodruff watching, saying Doug is the best. I mean, when you come on, the numbers just go up. Just so you know how.
No,
I just want you to know how popular you are. Now, I think you're going to like this. I don't want to spend too much more time on COVID because we do have other topics, but you'll like this question because I know you are a statistician. You love numbers. But Gina says, does the percentage of fatal cases also depend on how many people can be treated at the hospital? How does this affect stats from Germany, 0.3%, and the rest of the world?
Okay, so somebody's now asking, there's really only a couple of questions that mean anything with respect to this virus. And those questions are being answered now, and the answers are not known. So this is why very smart people have different intuition about this. And sometimes those intuitions are strong enough for them that they have opinions that are strong. I have my own opinion. It's not a strong opinion. In other words, my opinion will blow a different direction if the evidence comes in. And so right now, I'm quite optimistic about the outcomes of this, but I'm nervous, just like everybody else. I have friends of mine that I respect that are way more concerned than I am. And so in other words, they think we're looking at a much bigger problem than the one that I think. I think we're looking at, if I had to guess, AJ, I think we're looking at a very bad flu-like situation, maybe 2 or 3 times worse than the flu, and that it's going to hit our elderly population hard, and it's going to be bad, but it's not going to be a catastrophe. Okay, so that's my thinking. So let me give you the reasons briefly why it is there are widely held different opinions and sort of the different angles of it's kind of like a F. Scott Fitzgerald, when he wrote The Great Gatsby, you look at him from the eyes of different people, and so you're not sure who's got the truth on this, because you've got several different perspectives. The World Health Organization data right now, I looked at it. I'm always looking at it because this is my scale, folks. I'm a scale monkey. I'm a coronavirus scale monkey, so I got to keep looking at the numbers. As of this morning, March 28th, we have about 600,000 confirmed cases worldwide, and about 27,000 people have died. That, if you do the numbers on that, that's roughly 4%. Now that is terrifying, because if you were to map those 4% on the U.S. population, we have 300 million people. That would be 12 million people. That would be World War III like numbers. So the question is, should we be worried about those numbers? And my answer would be no, we shouldn't worry about those numbers. And the reason why we shouldn't worry about those numbers is the following: that the 4% of death, or the 27,000 people dead, are a quite accurate count of how many people have died of the coronavirus. In other words, all over the world, physicians are looking at this and they're testing these people, and they have a pattern of death that they go through that they know, and they can confirm that it's a coronavirus death. And it's more or less 27,000 people in the last 3 months. The question is, are there the 600,000 confirmed cases? Is that a good estimate? And the answer is no, it's a horrible estimate. It's the only people that we've tested. So we've only tested a tiny fraction of the world's population. So this would be akin to saying, for example, if people, there's people die in Toyotas. So 27,000 people have died in Toyotas, and so now let's go check how many Toyotas there are in Southeast Los Angeles. And we have some number that we count, and we say, oh my God, 27,000 people died out of the 600,000 Toyotas. We had 27,000 people nationwide died out of the 600,000 Toyotas that we counted in Los Angeles, because we counted 600,000. It's like, yeah, you didn't count the whole country. You've got to find out how many Toyotas there are in the whole country. How many people got this virus? Well, if we only tested 1% of the world, which we have not, by the way, we know that there are 100 times more cases. There aren't 600,000 cases in the world, folks. There's 60 million cases in the world, okay? So let's look at what this translates to in the United States, where more people have been tested, not very many. We have, oops, that's my mother. That's the one,
You can answer it.
the one number that will ring through on your podcast, AJ, is my mother.
Okay. We'd love to talk to her.
In the United States, 1,700 people have died as of this morning. And there's been 100,000 cases. So that looks like 1.7%, basically. That also would be a terrifying number if that were true. So 1.7 would mean that in 300 million people, we'd have 5 million deaths we would be facing. Now that's better than the 4% that the World Health Organization posting looks like. But 1.6 or 1.7 is still a catastrophe. This is the number that is very intimidating and scary. This is what mobilized the government, and this is what has caused all the discussion, something that would be around 1%. And running at 1.6 right now, smart people looking at that are saying, wow, that's scary. But once again, I want to ask you, how many people have we actually checked for the virus? And the answer is maybe 1 million. So that means we've only checked 1 in 300 people, because we got 300 million people. So statistically, we have to multiply the number of cases by a factor of 300. So that means we wouldn't expect that there's not 100,000 cases, there's 30 million. Now, I don't think there are, because I think that the original people tested are very concentrated and positive. The evidence from all over the world, places like Germany, Iceland, et cetera, looks like this virus is running at 2 or 3% of the population. In Seattle, they're testing at about 7 or 8%, but they're testing mostly sick people. So if we look at the United States, my guess is that we have at least 1% of people in the United States are infected. If that were not true, we wouldn't be seeing it all over New York City. We wouldn't be seeing it all over in every state. In other words, we probably got 1% of the population infected at this point. AJ, that's 3 million people. We only have 100,000 confirmed cases, but we've only tested a tiny amount of people. So how on earth did we confirm everybody in Iowa and in Dallas and in Los Angeles and in Fresno and in Tennessee and in the backwoods of the Ozarks? How could we possibly confirm those cases when they haven't been anywhere near a doctor? Of course, we have 100 times more cases than we have confirmed. So in the United States, we undoubtedly have at least 5 million cases. Now, maybe it's only 3 million. We may only have 1% of the United States may be infected right now. It's probably 2%, but it may only be 1%. If it's 1%, that means we have 3 million cases. That means 1,700 people have died out of 3 million cases. That's about 1 in 2,000. Now understand what a difference that is. The posted rate is 1.6%. That's a catastrophe. 1.6%, 1.6 people out of every 100. That would be 5 million Americans died. But right now, that's not what the evidence likely indicates. The evidence likely indicates that this is less than 1 in 1,000. That's a huge difference, okay? 1 in 1,000 is what the flu gets to us every year. That's how many people die every year of the flu. Right now, the evidence would indicate that this is less lethal than the flu. Now, do I believe that? No, because those people, the 5 million people that I think are infected haven't gone through the virus yet. So we're going to see the numbers go up, which is what you see every day. So we had 200 or 300 more people die yesterday, and it looks scary because it's growing. Well, that's because I think you've got 5 or 10 million people in the United States with this virus. Okay, so now the great question that the smart people are arguing is this going to kill more like 1% or is it going to kill more like 0.1%? That's a legitimate and terrifying question. And so that's why I have good friends of mine that say, Doug, I think it's more likely to be closer to 1%. Okay. And they are worried, as they should be. I think it's more likely to be 0.1%. I'm worried because they could be right. Okay. I could easily be wrong. It could be that we find out that in the next month, these numbers go astronomical, that we've got 5 million cases and it turns out it's 1%. And we wind up with something like 50,000 deaths in the United States in the next 30 days. That could be true. If that is true, which nobody knows, AJ, everybody may have an opinion and they have a very strong intuition, but it is not known. Okay. Right now we don't have that evidence because we've got 1,700 people out of a likely 5 million infections. So right this second, this thing looks like the flu, which is no small thing to have a new flu get loose, particularly because in the flu, you've got so many people sort of immune. And so every year we have 50 million cases, but this could go all the way to 300 million cases. So this could literally go through the entire population. So even 0.1% would be a big deal. Okay. Now, what do I think? I think it's worse than the flu. Okay. I think it's likely to be worse than 1 in 1,000. It might be 2 in 1,000. Do I think it's 1 in 100? Absolutely not. So I don't think we're looking, I think we're looking at a very bad year, but I don't think we're looking at the extraordinary catastrophe that some very smart people are worried about. The very smart people were worried enough that they screamed loud enough from the scientific community that it got the government's ear, and the government acted in the only responsible way, which is to stamp as hard as you can early on an epidemic so that you give us a chance to catch up. That makes sense. Did we do enough? Who knows? You always could have done more. I guess in China, that I heard that they were welding people into their apartments. I mean, we can't do that in the United States, okay? So we can ask people and we can say, listen, let's really be together on this and be smart because we don't know what we're dealing with. AJ, right now, what this is all about is this is a edgy discussion among the brightest minds that we have, trying to figure it out. Now, here's the thing. It's not a mystery that will last forever. In the next 30 days, we will know, because we will have enough evidence from enough numbers that we'll actually know, is this more like 1 in 1,000 or is it more like 1 in 100? Okay. I told you in a text earlier today, I said, people disagree with me that I respect. They could be right. I think I'm right. And I hope I'm right. Okay. I really hope I'm right. I think that essentially it's not about who's smarter. It's about what the actual facts are and what the numbers are. My intuition, I look at the amount of deaths that we're seeing worldwide, 395 in Germany. Germany's got, 80 million people. They've got 2% or 3% infected. That's a couple of million people are infected in Germany and they have 400 deaths. That doesn't look too scary. That looks like, okay, this looks like the flu, okay? We don't know. Am I only seeing the very tip of the iceberg? I'll know in 30 days, okay? So this is where we are, and this is where we stand, and I side with every worried person that says, be careful, wash your hands, don't visit your grandmother. Of course, we have to err on the side of great caution. What does my intuition tell me about the numbers? It tells me that it's a bad flu season. That's what it tells me. And it tells me this is going to hit our elderly hard. So it's a particularly bad flu season, but I don't see a catastrophe. Okay. So that's what I think. And like I said, I hope I'm right.
Would you mind if I read a couple nice comments about you before they go? Because what happens is they disappear after a while. So let's see. A lot of people are saying they hope you're right too. Gina says, Dr. Lisle has groupies, LOL, and I'm one of them. Maria says, Dr. Lisle is my favorite person ever. There's a lot of these comments are about how handsome you are, and they're just you need to know that people really appreciate your calm presence during this time. So I don't want to really talk COVID anymore, except
Sure.
for how it's affecting our people, meaning my people and your people. They're basically the same people, and we lovingly call them HCNCs, which are
Yes.
hyper conscientious nutcases. And so,
Yes.
like most humans, we all look at everything how it affects us.
Yes.
And so, what the comments I'm getting are, for example, from Laurel: I've been working from home and keep eating and eating and eating starches. How do I stop? Sherry says, I'm worried about staying away from the junk food. And there was one more comment here, how somebody is reacting to this intentionally going off plan. So how do we help our people, regardless of how this turns out, to stop eating?
Well, AJ, you and I always circle back to the fundamentals. If we're eating a bunch of junk food, where did we get it? Okay. So we recognize if it's in the house, it's in your mouth. And so for goodness sakes, take the junk food right now in a fit of self-discipline, throw it in your garbage can and take your garbage can outside into your big garbage can and dump it. Don't leave it in the bag. Dump it down into the garbage can. That way you won't be fishing down there for it. Okay. So literally in 2 minutes, if you need to clean out your house, just grit your teeth and clean it out. Okay. Then you don't have to think about it. So this is what I had a friend that lived in a high rise that had one of those laundry chutes. And I brought over a box of See's candy that somebody had given me at Christmas time. This is about 15 years ago. And I looked at that box and I knew that I was going to want to eat a whole lot of it. And instead I took out about 3 pieces. And then I took that box and I walked down the hallway to the laundry chute and I sent it down the laundry chute. It's like, it's gone. It's gone. I can't get it now. So that's what I would have you do. Throw your stuff down the laundry chute. That's what I'll do if junk food comes into my house. In a moment of self-discipline that I will never be able to sustain over the next 3 hours. Then in a flash of self-discipline, I can take it out to the garbage, throw it in there with the cat litter, and I'm safe. Okay. So that's one thing that I would tell you to do, which is our fundamental number one. The number one rule in the pleasure trap is no junk food in the house. And so when it gets in the house and you violated the rule, the solution is to grit your teeth and jump off the high dive and hit the water, get it out of your house, and then it's gone. Then we can have then you have this relief of your peace of mind. You have the regret over the treat that you don't have that's in there with the cat poop, but at the same time, pretty soon it fades from your mind. You will be scheming later about going back to the store, but that's a hassle. And then you've got everybody looking at you because you don't have a mask on and wear your gloves, and then you got to go you might run into somebody that you know, and then there you are getting in the treats. Of course, this helps you. So get rid of it. Okay, now, aside from that, what can I tell you? Another good thing to do when you're home and isolated is to keep up your personal physical fitness. There's so if you can't go to the gym, that's okay. You can exercise vigorously at home. Get some music on or put a video on, an exercise video, and work out fairly hard. And the reason is that will support your self-esteem. It makes you feel good about yourself, having worked your muscles hard, broken a sweat, and you're more likely to feel like, you know what, I want to treat my body well. So those are the 2 of the big things. We want to clean up our environment and support our self-esteem. If we do those 2 things often, we're gonna do a better job.
Well, you taught me that, and I do both of those every day. So what about the people that keep saying, but I'm overeating on starches? Why are people, God, they're still afraid of starch? It drives me crazy.
You need to interview Dr. McDougall again soon so he can yell at everybody.
Well, he actually contacted me today about being interviewed on Monday. So stay tuned, guys. Make sure you've got your notifications turned on, and I'll try to send out an email. So I did promise this young lady that I would ask this question because she wasn't able to get an appointment with you, and she's been suffering with an eating disorder for many years. So this is her question from Anna. Hello, I'm 41 years old and have been suffering from anorexia and bulimia for over 21 years now. I have tried many treatments, but most of them focus on restriction and other new ones on going all in. I also compete as a bikini pro and I need to maintain a good shape, but I want to be healthy. Right now, I am under 10% body fat. I am 5'10" tall and 125 pounds. Obviously, I've had no period for many years. Do you believe that following the starch solution would help me with my huge hunger and never being satisfied after eating? She's been eating a keto style diet, salmon, olive oil, avocado with some vegetables, and my binging and purging cycle. Do you think that a stay at either True North or fasting escape could help me with my bulimia?
I have a few comments to make about this. So that's a courageous question to ask, and let me give you a few perspectives on this. I think the starch-centered diet is absolutely the way to go. It's a way to be lean and fit and satisfied. So I think that's what a person should do. Do I think that stay at a place like Fasting Escape? True North, maybe hard to get into at times, but Fasting Escape is generally not as overburdened. And so I think that something like that could be a very good rest for people, and trying to sort of recalibrate and settle down and take time out for themselves if it makes sense. And then you have outstanding food there that is health supporting and in a really good balance. Now, what do I think in general? I think I see an Achilles heel that I have a momentary hesitation to mention, and I just want to give this person specifically feedback. There are maybe a few other people in similar kinds of circumstances, not many, but I'm answering this highly specific question. I think it's a bad idea to be a bikini competitor. I think that's a bad idea. So even though the person is probably very attractive, unusually, a very unusual sort of top person in humanity for attractiveness, or she wouldn't be in such competitions. And so, of course, there's a great desire to display, our unusual talents or assets in some way. Of course, that's true. So similarly, if I had a person who is very, very self-obsessed and very self-critical about their appearance, and they were extremely beautiful, and they could make a good living as a model, I would tell them it's a bad idea. Okay, go do something else, because you may make a good living as a model, but you are going to be psychologically tortured by your personality that is inherently self-critical. This is very likely to be the case here. We have an extremely attractive person who's also very naturally thin, and yet we have a competitive situation where every ounce of contour is being examined by people and rated. This is a terrible situation. So this is going to cause this individual to be very concerned about things like how much her stomach pooches out after she eats the potatoes that she should be eating. And she'll go and check the mirror and she'll see her stomach pooch out, and then she'll be all upset, and then she'll realize, no, what I need to eat is, half of a Snickers bar, because that won't pooch my stomach out and I'll feel more satisfied, which is, of course, exactly the wrong thing to do to keep the fat off, but it makes you look thin in the moment. This is the kind of crazy making that goes on when we are put ourselves under such extraordinary self-scrutiny. So, even me, who I've come to live with my flaws pretty well after 60 years. But if I start, if somehow I'm going and checking my website, or I Google myself, which happens from time to time, I'll see a bunch of pictures of myself, and I'll see my hair thinning over here, and I'm like, oh my God, In other words, I start a little obsessive cycle about the fact that my hair doesn't look the way it looked when I was 40. Okay, so and that's me, who I'm pretty, like I said, pretty at peace with life. Okay, so a person that is more inherently self-critical, this is not a good strategy. So I would have you run an experiment. Obviously, this has been the type of thing this person's been doing for a long time. It won't hurt you to skip a year of the competition. Opt out. See what life is like eating a healthy McDougall-style diet. Okay. See what happens to your weight, which will probably creep up 3 or 4 or 5 pounds. Okay. You'll get healthier. Nobody will care about this. You'll still be just as beautiful as ever, except that you won't be razor thin. You may find menses coming back, which means that you're actually in more appropriate balance. Okay. Most people would find such an individual probably more attractive than an individual that's actually short of menses because they're so lean. Okay. But some people wouldn't, and the bikini people with their little bizarre criteria might not think so. But we got to get away from that. Okay, so this is really the real answer to a bulimic, panicked, highly anxious, highly conscientious, beautiful person who's making that beauty and unusual characteristics front and center in a public way and under constant scrutiny. This is too hard. Okay, so this reminds me of when we're kids, when we hear about somebody getting famous, and then we hear that they have problems, and we roll our eyes like, well, if I could do like Michael Jackson, I wouldn't have those problems. I'd just be rich and famous, and it would be just like really cool. No, not true. That all it takes is 3 people giving us negative feedback on Facebook, and it wrecks our whole day. So negative feedback is something, and scrutiny is not something that we want in droves, and we don't want to put ourselves in the limelight like that. Not unless you're made of really stable, tough stuff. And even then, it's not easy. So this person, I would say, please consider the possibility of sidelining yourself for a little while and living life without that particular competition. And eat a healthy, starch-centered type diet, and let's see whether or not life gets better.
Oh my God, thank you so much. I just heard from this individual, and she did manage to get an appointment with you in April, and she is so appreciative of what you said. So this is just perfect. Thank you. I was blown away by your answer. I didn't expect it because I've not heard you say that before, but it makes complete sense. But don't you say, or I've heard you say that people that in general that binge, not everybody that binges, vomits, which I think is
Sure.
not a very good habit, for health. Things can really happen bad from that, from what I understand. But isn't it always the lack of starch that causes that? Because, a lot of people are willing to eat these large volumes of vegetables and feel mechanically full for a short time, but it doesn't. I've been doing this 8 years now. You've been doing it, a lot longer, but it always comes back to the people are still afraid to eat starch.
Yeah, that's why I was saying have John yell at him when you interview him. The people need to not be afraid of the starches. The starches are considerably lower in calorie density than the anthropological evidence indicates that was the natural level for our species. The natural level for our species is probably somewhere in the range of 600 to 700 calories a pound. The starches are all less than that, which means the starches are diluting your calorie intake, okay, relative to your species' natural history. So now when we mean starches, with the McDougall program and elsewhere, we're actually, there's another word in there that doesn't get put in there because it's just one extra word that I now put in: wet starches. Okay, the dry starches are high in calorie density: crackers, cookies, biscuits, bread. And so that's why we've learned over the last 20 or 30 years that those, even though they're starches, they can be very healthy biochemically. They can put weight on people. So we don't mean unlimited starches of of bread and jam. We mean unlimited starches of the natural state where they're wet. So rice cakes are healthy food, but they're a dried starch. If you have a weight problem, they will support you being overweight because they're 1,400 calories a pound. But rice is not going to be a problem. Rice is 500 calories a pound. Potatoes are 375. Squash is 300. Oatmeal is 325. Beans are about 400. These are all very modest, intermediate, perfect in their caloric density. You do not need to fear them. You will not systematically overeat those. Okay? If you want to try, you could entertain yourself one day by eating 5 pounds of beans. Just see if you can choke it down. Okay? There's no way. Okay? That's only 2,000 calories. You're not gonna do it. You're not gonna eat 6 pounds of potatoes. So go ahead and go get yourself 10 pounds of potatoes at the store, an enormous sack, and then just steam up 6 pounds of them, and then see whether or not you can eat them. And my guess will be you really won't comfortably be able to fit those down and won't be interested. Starches are not the problem. Starches are the solution. And so we need to have those, even though fruits and vegetables and salad, a modest amount of nuts and seeds, these are part of a wholesome diet. But the starches are the center. And so that they wind up being the solution to calming down people's hunger. If people stay away from those, they can get very, very hungry in fits of self-discipline, and they'll stay away from that. And as you say, AJ, if they eat a bunch of fruits and vegetables, they're going to get hungry. And then by fearing the starches, what will often happen is they will then hit high density calories in a rage. Their self-discipline will break because they're hungry, and now they're going to go eat a whole jar of peanuts. Okay? And it's like, no, that's just what we didn't want to do. We didn't want to dive into 2,500 calorie per pound food to fill you up to get you satiated. We wanted you to be eating rice and beans, potatoes, corn, oats. We wanted you to have a very hearty soup that has kidney beans and rice and potatoes in there, along with a bunch of vegetables. That's what we wanted you to do. And if we do that, we're going to be successful.
Right, because it's different when you eat dry oats. They're like 1,800 calories a pound, but when you cook them in water, you said they were like 365. I love that you say wet starches, differentiating bread and crackers and dry cereals.
Right. Yeah. If you're a person struggling with your weight and you're at home right now, and you're veganish and you're careful and you're trying to do all the right things, if you're eating a lot of dry starches, which are very convenient and they sit on the shelf and they're there for you all day long, those are part of the problem. So you need to understand that's when John wrote the Maximum Weight Loss, he was saying, listen, we got to be careful of the high density foods. Those high density foods include things like nuts and avocado and seeds, and they also include the dry starches. So processed cereal grains. So that's why it moves us more towards whole natural foods. It's not that you have to eliminate all those things. It's just that we have to moderate those. You have to be wise about that and understand that you need to be getting most of your feeling from being full, about staring at a large pile of starch somewhere on your plate or in your bowl. That's what needs to be the bulk of what you're eating.
Okay, even though you're saying this, and I believe you because so far you've never been wrong, and at least since I've known you about 10 years, Kelly is saying that when she eats unlimited starches like boiled potatoes and rice, she gains weight, and that she literally can eat 6 pounds of potatoes. So these people are outliers, right? And maybe they need a session with you.
Well, I would say this, and because enough people think that, and there's actually reasons why a lot of people will think that, I would challenge them to do the following. One of the things that goes on is that when you eat starch, if you eat a big bunch of starch, then what's going to happen is you're going to store a lot of it as glycogen. And for every pound of starch that you store, you're also going to store 2 extra pounds of water. So very often when people say, Dr. Lisle, if I eat potatoes, I gain weight, what they really are saying is, when I eat potatoes on Tuesday, the scale goes up on Wednesday and Thursday. That's what they're saying. And they've done it 7 or 8 times maybe. And it always happens. And they say, see, it causes me to gain weight. That is not a legitimate assessment, because what we don't care about your weight at all, people. We care about your fat. Okay. And your fat you're going to lose fat maybe at the rate of an ounce a day. Well, you can't tell, you eat potatoes on Tuesday and you're up 2 pounds by Wednesday afternoon. You don't know if you've gained any fat or not. How would you know? You're up 32 ounces. Are you up 33 ounces of water and glycogen and you've lost an ounce of fat? I will say that that's probably what happened. Okay. But you're up 32 ounces, you're up 2 pounds, and you're screaming, hey, I can't eat starch. Okay. No, what you have to do is you have to take data over time. So you want to eat a starch-centered diet. So if you're going to start on the 1st of April Fool's Day is a good time to start this. Okay. So April Fool's Day, we have fun with ourselves. And we have three days where we take a consecutive measurement of our weight on April 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. We take the average in the morning, stripped or in your underwear. And we write that down. Let's say it's 168 pounds. Okay. That is our best guess of what your weight is. So we're going to say, you don't have a weight because every time you take a breath, you breathe out some of your own molecules. So you are a little bit lighter with every breath that you take. And so you don't have a weight, AJ. You've got about a weight. So after a 3-day average gives us more or less a good index of what your weight is. So let's suppose somebody's 168 pounds. So now what we want them to do is to eat this maximum weight loss starch-centered diet that they do not have to hold back on the starches. That's what I want them to do. And I want them to do exactly what we would recommend. Let's reduce or eliminate the nuts, avocado, and seeds. Let's get rid of the dried carbohydrate. And and otherwise we're not going to restrict. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So now we're going to do that. And now we're going to look at it a month later. And on May 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, we're going to take the same measurements. Now, if you're down 2 pounds, there's a good chance that you've actually dropped 2 pounds in the last 30 days, which is no small thing. Now, for many of us that are trying to lose weight, we're really frustrated with this, but you shouldn't be. Because if you lost 2 pounds, that's the equivalent of here's about a 16-ounce thing of water right here that I'm holding. You lost 2 of these full of fat. Okay, that's a huge amount of progress. You may not be able to see it. You may be frustrated that the number is only down from 168 to 166. But the truth is, it means that you got to eat to satiation on healthy food. You did not have to diet otherwise. And you're down 2 of these in 30 days. That's pretty good. Now, that was only an ounce a day. Okay, but you can't possibly see that measuring day to day. So my challenge to everybody who thinks that if they eat starches, they gain weight, my question would be, really? Did you do this program very well for 60 straight days? Did you measure your weight in 3 consecutive days and take an average on the 1st of every month? And did we see a trend that you gained weight? Okay. If that's true, I'm going to be very surprised if that's true. In fact, I believe that the trend will go the other way. Okay, so if the trend, if you gain weight, did you actually do this, or were there other things that snuck in? Okay, so don't be blaming the starch. I think people blame the starch for various reasons, but the most important reason is when they eat starch, a lot of starch, their weight goes up in the next 24, 48 hours, and they think that the starches are causing weight gain. They are causing short-term weight gain, but they're not causing any fat gain. And ultimately, they're the solution to you getting your weight normalized.
Oh, thank you so much. I think a lot of times, like you had mentioned with the person that's competing in bikini contests, many women that come to us have a strong history of a restricting type of program, like a weighing and measuring program, and they're not actually used to being full. Because our next question, believe it or not, this is perfect, was about stretch receptors, which I'll read, but people are posting, they don't like it when their stomach goes out. And I just want to show you, this is my stomach after I eat. big deal. It goes down. I mean, I'm eating 10 pounds of food a day. You think it's not going to poof out, but I've been skinny now for like, 6 years. And I mean, nobody eats as I eat a lot. It's so what? It goes down. And I'm not doing bikini competitions.
Right.
But
Right.
here's the question about the stretch receptors. So from Kana, I believe I'm pronouncing her name right. Does this way of eating stretch your stomach for more volume to satiety? Because I think that these women that come to us, Dr. Lisle, they've just never eaten enough food.
Your sensitivity to how much you eat is going to be dynamic. So it's going to change. So let's suppose that you eat a low calorie dense, let's suppose you've been eating a high calorie dense diet. So you've been getting, 2,000 calories a day, but you've been getting it on 3 pounds of food, or let's say 2.5 pounds of food. So let's suppose that you've been eating 800 calorie a pound food on average. Pretty healthy, but a little on the rich side. And the extra rich, the richness of the diet has caused you to be 25 pounds overweight. So you're frustrated and you're ready to try something new. And you find our arena of the world. And you decide you're going to do what we do, and we're going to eat foods that are going to be more like 600 calories a pound on average. So we're going to drop us down in caloric density, and we're going to increase the amount of food from 2.5 pounds a day to 3.5 pounds of food a day. And so as a result, at first it's going to be a little uncomfortable. It's going to be like, wow, I'm really full. Because the stretch receptors are not going to be used to getting that much stretch. However, that's going to pass because their nerves, they get used to the kind of stimulation that they're exposed to consistently. So as a result, that's going to go on for a while. And then if you went back and ate very concentrated food, you might not be as satisfied and you might overeat a little more. Okay, so for a short period of time. So the answer to this is that these processes are dynamic. They're not static. So you don't, quote, stretch your stomach out and then you've got a disaster. No, your stomach doesn't stretch anyway, folks. It's not like if you put a bunch of stuff, it stretches the stomach. The stomach is essentially, it's an organ system. It's a fixed dynamic. What you're talking about is, as the stomach is stretched when we put stuff in it, how uncomfortable do you get? The lower density food that you get, where there's more bulk inside the stomach, you will get used to that, so that it won't be screaming as loud to you. It won't be saying after, we've all heard this since I was a kid. Oh, if I eat Chinese food, I feel so full, and then an hour later I feel like I haven't eaten anything. Yeah, that's the talk of a man who eats a very high fat diet and eats steak and cheese that he eats actually in physically small amounts and gets satisfied that way. Goes to Chinese food, which could be far less in calorie density. So he eats a huge amount and he's like, oh my God, I'm full. But he didn't really have any more calories than he ever does. But then an hour later, or actually it might be less, and then an hour later he's hungry. He's hungry because he didn't actually eat that many calories as he's used to eating. And so now he's hungry again and he's surprised. Well, that's because it's a different calorie density and it's got a different dynamic. No, don't worry about your stomach stretching or not stretching, et cetera, et cetera. There's this fear that if I eat a bunch of low calorie dense foods, my stomach stretches out. And then if I go back to rich foods, I'm going to eat 8 pounds a day of rich food. And now I'm going to be eating like 8,000 calories a day. And the answer is no, you won't. Okay, no, you won't. If you were to go back to higher density foods, the system would very quickly adapt to that. And that's how that works. And stretch reception isn't the only actor in the equation anyway. You have nutrient receptors that are monitoring the calorie density of the food that you eat, so that if you are somebody like myself who eats a great deal of low calorie dense food, not even close to AJ, by the way, AJ eats me under the table, 2 to 1. Okay, so I'm probably eating a 600 to 700 calorie a day or calorie a pound diet. AJ's eating 300 or so. Completely different diet. In other words, very similar foods biochemically, but your food is far richer in fiber and far higher water content. That's just how it is. That's fine. Both of them are excellent diets. However, the However, if you were to eat something very rich, AJ, even though it wouldn't stretch your stomach out very much, your chemical receptors in your stomach would tell. They could tell. They'd be like, "Whoa, you just fed me a handful of peanuts. There's a lot of calories in here, AJ. What did you just do to me?" Okay, so the system is smarter than just stretch reception, and it does not, even though it gets used to a certain level of stretch, it also will change and it will be dynamic. The whole system, folks, is engineered towards attempting to be accurate. It's attempting to get you to eat the right amount of food for your optimum health. That is how it's designed, okay? So in the same way, if you were to drive from Los Angeles to Aspen, your brain would now start filling your lungs more or a higher respiration rate because of the lower concentration of the oxygen, okay? You might say, oh no, well now if I do that and I'm breathing harder and deeper, what happens when I go back to Los Angeles? I'm gonna hyperventilate because I'll breathe too much. No, you won't. The system will re-regulate back down in Los Angeles at sea level, okay? So these systems are dynamic and they are designed by nature to get this accurate. There will be short-term adjustments, but never long-term stuck processes. That is biologically impossible, okay? So I hope that answers that question.
That was great. And, you know, I think the problem isn't that people are eating starch and perceiving that they're gaining weight. The problem is that they're weighing themselves. I'm running a 21-day program right now, and on day 6, people were complaining that they're at a plateau on day 6 of eating this way. You know,
beautiful. AJ, that's a beautiful observation, and so all we can do is to try to, you know, I have great empathy for everybody because they're committed, they have learned a lot, they know what direction they ought to go, they're doing it, and then they're expecting very fast results that they can measure, which would be normal if we were trying to teach you math. If we were trying to teach you math, we would give you little quizzes at every little section and you could see that you'd made progress and you would get, it's called feedback. The problem that we have with weight loss is that the feedback systems are unnatural for people, okay? The feedback systems are, the legitimate feedback systems take several weeks for us to see even a mild amount of legitimate measurement of change. And what's in here is a bunch of noise, and the noise is super confusing and will throw people off their motivational game. So what I want you to do is to trust us and to not be measuring yourself every day. We expect something spectacular, like, for example, 2 pounds a month. So you might be more. If you're very overweight and you have made a big change towards us, you might lose 8 pounds in a month. But most people aren't there. Most people are 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight. And so when they make those changes, you're not going to probably see 10 or 8 pounds in a month. You could, but it's not very likely. It's more likely we're going to see 2 or 3. So AJ, I think we saw 2 pounds a month for 27 months with you. Mm-hmm. Okay, this was a slow dance, people. It was perfectly executed slow dance. Okay, AJ did not lose 50 pounds in 4 months. She did not lose 50 pounds in 8 months. She didn't lose 50 pounds in a year. She lost 54 pounds in 27 months. So let's be patient with yourselves. This is a lifetime way of walking. It's not even a marathon. Okay, it's not a race. It's just we get it right and we allow the system to normalize beautifully as we're going to continue with a very healthy path, not for a short period of time on a diet to lose weight so then we can go back to everything else. No, we need to make the changes now that are comfortable and that we're willing to make and get used to it so that we can make them forever. And that doesn't mean you're never going to do anything naughty. It just means you better not do very much naughty very often. That's what it means.
Wow. That's incredible. You know, I want people to know that if they love you as much as I love you and can't get enough of you, Dr. Lisle, actually, we did a course called Escaping the Pleasure Trap where he talks about this in great detail. And I think it's still available, but even if it's not, we're going to run it again later. And now with so much time at home, this would be perfect because then we could be talking quite a bit about this. I would love for you sometime to talk even more about these stretch and nutrient receptors, because I read The Pleasure Trap and I know how you have the concept of the YOL circuits, you're overweight, eat less. But
Yes.
I just always wonder if stretch receptors and nutrient receptors, can you see them under a microscope? How is your brain involved? Because I had you had mentioned that if I ate some rich food, which I never would do intentionally, I would
Mhm.
know. I had an incident recently, and I forgot to tell you about it, but you made me think of it. But first, I do want to say that I did lose the weight very slowly over 27 months, and I didn't own a scale at the time. So I didn't,
Yes.
I did, and if I did, I would have probably never done it because I would have given up on day 6 like everyone else and say, see, it doesn't work. I'm at a plateau.
So,
So I was at a new friend's house and I thought she knew exactly how I ate. And I went to her house for dinner, and it was like she had made a salad dressing that she had just seen Chef Bravo make on the summit. So I knew I could eat that. She had a salad. She had all different kinds of baked and roasted potatoes and sweet potatoes. And she made a cheese sauce, like a fake vegan cheese sauce. And I said, what's in it? And she goes, oh, I made it out of carrots and potatoes, which is completely doable. There's many cheese sauces that are made out of that. So I'm eating it and this is good. And I remember Dr. Goldhammer saying that when something is really good, spit it out. So I'm eating this cheese sauce. I'm like, this is good. This is really good. And I'm eating it and eating it and putting it on everything. And then I said, can I see the recipe? This is really good. And guess what was in it that she didn't tell me? A shitload of cashews.
that's what I
Right?
was going to say.
And it's like, I was eating it under false pretense, not knowing, but I knew there was something because I'm like, because I said, are you sure you didn't put salt in here? Oh no, Benson's table taste. And I'm like, because my brain is like, but I like this too much because I can take or leave the vegan cheese sauces. They're all right. I don't do them a lot, but I'm like, so what does my brain, how does your brain know when you're being fooled?
Your taste receptors can pick up the calorie density. They're an energy detection system, as they should be, for goodness sakes. They're trying to help you make decisions on what on earth to ingest. So your internal natural genius of your design could sniff it, okay? And notice what it did. It literally said, come to me. You kept using your muscles to close the distance between you and that food, okay? Keep bringing it in, just as it was designed. And then because you've learned, because you're 1 in 1,000 in terms of knowledge of nutrition and human motivation around food, you said to yourself, AJ, you like this a little too much. I fell for this, by the way. I think I told you the story in the soup line that I ate the soup at a soup place that Alan and I always went for lunch at, and it said vegan, and it said there's nothing in it. And I went back to the office and I said, Alan, you got to get over there and taste that harvest butternut squash soup. I mean, it's vegan, it's clean, it's great. He goes, it has cream in it. I said, no, I read the ingredients. He says, yeah, it does. I tasted one bite, knew it was too much, went back and talked to the chef, and they said, yeah, we put cream in it. So this is the value of being paranoid, So Alan's got a nice paranoid streak. I don't. I trusted. And yeah, if it's too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true.
Right. This is great. Zena's saying, unfortunately, my YOL circuits have been on hiatus my entire life. Rich food doesn't register and I have to stay away because I can't regulate it. So yeah,
There you go.
fantastic. Well, I mean, I could talk to you forever, but I want to respect your time. And who knows how long we'll be sheltering in place. I've got a lot of great guests coming up, including Dr. McDougall, but you have an open invitation anytime of the day or night that you feel like going live to, 500 or 600 people. Just text me because you have so much to say and people love the way you say it. You've got so many fans, admirers, many of them women, by the way. So this has been terrific, and we'll get you that information about the Pleasure Trap class. Make sure you're signed up to be on my mailing list because we will send it out, but it may be available now. I don't know. So thank you, Dr. Lisle. You are just, it's just been a very reassuring talking to you.
Great seeing you, HA. Thanks for having me.
Okay, thanks everybody, and see you tomorrow when we have somebody that's going to do a sound bowl healing. Bye-bye.